Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. Michelle Young was interviewed by Kaitlyn Bristowe, and she said some fantastic things, including this: "My value does not decrease as a woman now that I'm not with a man who I frankly shouldn't be with." I'm going to share all these clips with you. She talks about how it's easier for the male to be plain, that being the Bachelor Zach, versus the Bachelorette. She talks about the shame she's received from leaving her profession. She talks about losing followers after her breakup with Nayte, and then talks about falling apart in her deal with anxiety. Very fascinating stuff. Going to jump right into it. Like I said, I'm going to play for you guys a whole bunch of different clips here. So let's jump to the first one at the 6-minute mark. This is where Michelle talks about getting the raw deal, in the sense that she was in a the quote unquote bubble in the quarantine for both the Bachelor and the Bachelorette. Have a listen.
That I'm not a big person who believes in regrets, really, because you're just spending more time wasting on the past, and you can't change it, right? But I really do feel like the whole lacking of like traveling, I really didn't get this whole Bachelorette experience, whether I was a contestant in a bubble or I had my own season. And as I'm very, very grateful for my experience and the platform it's given me and the opportunities it's given me, like, this itch to travel was not scratched during my time there. And so I think that's the thing that kind of like arises more frequently of, you see all these people travel and you're very happy that they get that experience. And I'm like, damn, I landed in this like perfect amount of time where I was a cast member in a bubble and I was a lead in the bubble.
Now, for all the things that Michelle's going to rail on, this to me reeks of privilege. Like, you were on a TV show, you didn't get to travel to Phuket. You were, it was during the pandemic. A lot of people had it worse during the pandemic. All that. But either way, interesting to hear her point.
And that's what's tricky.
Let me make you feel better about that situation, because when I was on The Bachelor, we went to Iowa twice, and we went to South Dakota, and we went to New Mexico. Where did you go
overseas, though? Where did you go overseas?
Okay, at the end, I got to go to Bali.
Okay.
Oh, Bali, you don't say.
Okay, right?
But
so, like, I'm here. They brought me back to my hometown. They're like, we're going to Minnesota.
I would have loved that.
All right, so she didn't get to go to Bali. Can we get a GoFundMe for Michelle? No, to be quite honest, I do love Michelle opening up with Kaitlyn Bristowe. This is why, not to bootlick here, Kaitlyn, but this is why Kaitlyn's the best. She takes people like Michelle Young, and no offense to Michelle Young, but she gets her to talk about some real intimate stuff.
I mean, shit, I don't know where they found them, but they found some.
That's cool. That's obviously, I'm not going to have you name names, but like, that's cool, because I just watched it for the first time the other day, and I mean, it was kind of weird because of the whole Zoom thing, but
Talking about Kaitlyn Bristowe just watched Zach's season of The Bachelor for the first time.
Actually was like, wait, I thought he was going to be boring, and he was quite pleasant, and like, I kind of think he's a dope bachelor.
I feel like I'll say this. Going through the whole system of The Bachelor, it is easier for the male to be more plain than the Jane to be plain, if you know what I'm saying. Like, it's just...
That's an interesting premise. What do you guys think? Is it easier for the Bachelor to be plain than it is for the Bachelorette to be plain? I personally think in recent years, it's been that the men are being extremely criticized. But again, I come at it from looking at the male perspective, whereas Michelle's looking at it from a female perspective. So it's very hard to quite understand what it's like for the other person. Like, does Michelle have any idea what it's like for Clayton to have to deal with all the accusations that he's cheating on this person and hooking up with that person, and or all the, I don't know. I think it's tough to judge.
Play on words there.
Yeah, I like that. That was good.
Yeah. But I will say that there are definitely sides to Zach that I have come to appreciate.
Yeah.
And there are definitely situations where he handles things correctly. And as every lead, there are situations where, you struggle through them.
Yeah, I guess I can't really speak to all the episodes. I've only seen one, but the poor guy was freaking COVID, and people are like crying in London that they're not with him. But anyways, I'm excited to watch the rest of the season regardless. But I will say 2 years or almost 2 years after my season, I still couldn't watch. So I know it's part of your job, but you know, you haven't really, I kind of removed myself and like separated myself, which was good for me, but you don't really have that option because you still get to have like the podcast through it, which is incredible.
I mean,
this is what we've been wondering is, you know, it's been thought that Michelle was going to leave the podcast, but yeah, Michelle's got to deal with being a recent Bachelorette. Like Katie Thurston wants nothing to do with The Bachelor, but Michelle's got a paycheck attached to it.
I'll be the one thing that I've been trying to just follow more recently is that, I mean, I'm very new to social media still. Like, like you said, you're 2 years into this. I'm 2 years into social media. Like, social media really
crazy.
Like it is this whole new world that is filled with anxiety, and I'm really trying to come to terms with. I want to be vulnerable and honest with who I am. That's how I am in my everyday life. And it's uncomfortable to do that on social media. And like with the podcast involved, that's something that I just really have had to like stick to that honesty with how this is. And it's like there have been a lot of things, and the franchise will also acknowledge this as well, of that there's just definitely some changes that need to be made.
Okay, this after the blackface wasn't discussed with Eric Schwer. Michelle Young thought it was going to be. She walked out of the, I guess what was the men tell all, or the after the final rose, whatever it was. And Michelle surprisingly has stuck around the show, and you're gonna listen to why.
And that has been where my like draining energy has come from, and those are the things that am trying to work through, right? Of just like really wanting to surround myself with things that are positive. And there are a lot of just experiences and opportunities that I've received from this being the Bachelorette. But I also want to push for change, and I also want to have an impact. And I've been able to do that with like having my voice on Bachelor Happy Hour, but like it hasn't been easy for sure.
I can't even imagine. Obviously, I can't imagine how hard that would be, especially because you probably had like two options. You either use your voice or you walk away from that, and because both could be empowering. It could be empowering to walk away and be like, this is too much, I'm emotionally drained, and this is not my responsibility, and if they're not willing to make certain changes, why should I stay here? But also, I stay here to use my voice and to be the change and to, you know, be able to have that impact, and that's what you're doing. So I think that's awesome, but it doesn't mean
I've said the same thing about Michelle. Like, everyone's like, go back into teaching. I'm like, if she wanted to, she could have 1 million Instagram followers and teach people in a bigger way, or support teachers from like a legislative way where she, you know, helps get teachers elected into office so that they can make policy that's better for, you know, for education. You know, there's so many ways she can help teachers and help students without being in the classroom, which, you know, God bless all of our teachers out there. We love our teachers, but it can be very tough, and it can be a situation that like you could have changed 20 people's lives, which is great, but you know, Michelle's got this opportunity to possibly do a little bit more.
Or it's the same thing. It's honestly, there's like this huge issue where just God, being in the world of social media, content creation, all of this stuff, right? It's not that people do sit there and care about like followers, likes, engagement, like there's all this different stuff, like right? Because at the end of the day, it does showcase support in some way. What you support, what you stand for, what you vibe with, what you don't. And what's so funny, and what I was talking to somebody recently about, is that just an observation of you're not in a functioning relationship. Oh, my value as a woman, my value as a person all of a sudden declines because I'm not in a successful relationship from the show.
Right.
It's like, it's just like...
this is Michelle talking about the fact that she lost Instagram followers after breaking up with Nayte. And in part, like, I understand the defensiveness, but in part, people, you are a commodity to a certain amount of people. Like, there are a certain amount of people that are only following you to get the finality of last season, to see how it all played out. And then once you see that you broke up, then they move on. That's just a fact. That's part of it. But I support Michelle in saying, yeah, tell those people to go take a hike.
This huge, like, you experienced this huge thing. And there was someone that asked me a question of, like, well, Michelle, like, how are you, like, you've lost a lot of followers since the breakup and all these things that are happening. And I said,
Kick
cool.
rocks.
I hope the door doesn't hit them on the way out.
Yeah.
Then they weren't supporters in the first place, because if they think that my value decreases as a human and as a woman after I'm not in a relationship with a man who I frankly shouldn't be in.
You're like, I'm busy building a community.
Goodbye.
So if they're not in, they're out by, yeah.
You know, wise man once said, you got to crack an egg to make an omelet.
Yeah, that's
See yourself out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like, it's so crazy.
It is. It really is
So crazy.
crazy, because if we were to bring, like, say we took 10 trolls off the internet and we actually sat them down in a circle with
They wouldn't, trolls don't sit down. They hide behind their little screens and keyboards.
yeah, and they would never show their faces.
But let's say they do.
And of course, if you haven't checked it out yet, the last video I just made is a story about an influencer. She's a New York Times bestselling author. You have to check it out, Brianna Madia. And for those YouTubers listening, you got to go check that out. The story of her fighting back against her trolls is fascinating. She's naming their names. She's taking no prisoners.
Let's say we pay them, we get them here.
Hypothetically, we put 10 trolls in a circle with a licensed therapist, and they were able to, like, really dive deep into each one of these people's, like, beings. It would be really sad. It would be really, really sad, and no one should ever take what they say personally, because they are going through so much inner turmoil and have so many demons that it's like, it's actually sad. Like,
So good on Caitlin for saying it's sad. They've got inner demons, understanding that hurt people. But of course, they'll still try to get you fired from jobs and give you 1-star reviews on podcasts they'll never listen to. So you can understand that sometimes you can't just ignore them.
You could figure it out. And I was dropping weight, like you said. And it looked my parents in my eye, you know, America's sweethearts in the eye. And we all just, that light wasn't there. And it was just like, this is my quality of life now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything where I wanted to take myself out of the game. Right? But it was definitely just like looking, okay, like, this is life now.
So some very interesting moments from this podcast with Caitlin Bristow's Off the Vine, starring Caitlin Bristow, and of course with Michelle Young, talking about the anxiety she got from being on the show, and also from being a workhorse, working very hard as a teacher. So she's taken time off, and definitely, I assume, and good for her. I love this version of Michelle Young. I feel like it'll probably trigger some of you guys in the comment section, but I love someone who stops playing polite and speaks their mind. I don't know why we don't get this on the Bachelor Happy Hour podcast with Becca Kufrin. We don't get this at all, but kudos to Caitlin Bristow for pulling it out of Michelle, because we love hearing her story. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment this afternoon, probably live right now. Click a link in the comment section to check Bachelor Rush Hour, the podcast, daily afternoon content for you guys. All right, well, that's it for me. For the next episode tomorrow, all my content's pre-made because I'll be flying in the air. Actually, I might have one video coming your way from the lounge in Taipei if I have enough time on my layover, but otherwise, I'll be flying back from Indonesia. I'm exhausted, I'm sunburnt, and I'm bloated, and I can't wait to be home. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.